start with a high-level, high-stakes meeting that could take place this month between North Korea's leader Kim Jong Un and Russia's President Vladimir Putin. This could well impact the war in Ukraine. According to US officials, Kim Jong Un is expected to make a rare visit overseas and discuss the possibility of North Korea providing Moscow with weapons to support its war in Ukraine. The exact location of the planned meeting is not yet clear. In a statement, US national security officials say that arms negotiations between Russia and North Korea are actively advancing. I talked this through with our North America correspondent, Peter Bowes.
There has been growing concern in Washington that this deal was being worked on by Russia and North Korea. It followed a visit to North Korea by the Russian defense minister. And so now, in the last few hours, we have confirmation from officials in Washington that it is believed, as you say, that Kim Jong Un and Vladimir Putin will meet at some point, a place to be decided, it seems, or at least revealed, in Russia over the next few weeks. A very high-stakes meeting. They have met before. 2019 was the last time in Russia, but clearly the situation is different now. And we know that Russia needs more artillery ammunition. With very few friends around the world, it is perhaps telling that they are turning to a pariah state like North Korea to, it seems, source this weaponry that they crucially need to pursue the war in Ukraine. It wouldn't be one-sided, though. What we understand, and this is being reported by the New York Times, is that this would come as a price, and the price from North Korea would be advanced technology from Russia to help it advance its nuclear program, and also possibly food supplies for North Korea. It's a very impoverished country, a lot of starvation across that nation, and that food supplies could be part of this potential deal.
Yeah, as you say, you're looking at the basics, money and food, and then you're looking at advanced weaponry. But whatever is discussed, whatever is going on in terms of a new transactional relationship, it raises a lot of concerns, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's the concern, apart from the immediate impact, of course, on the war in Ukraine. But going forward, if this is a relationship that is in perhaps the early stages of being developed at a defence level, perhaps involving nuclear equipment, that is of a concern, a much broader concern. And also from the United States perspective, part of the policy of the US and its allies has been to isolate Russia diplomatically especially, but in many practical senses as well around the world. And this will be a chink in that it wouldn't be the isolation that the United States especially wants to see if Russia has found a way to get the weaponry that it requires.
Peter Bowes there. Well, I also talked to Nina Khrushcheva, who's Professor of International Affairs at the New School in New York City. Now, Nina is also the great-granddaughter of former Premier of the Soviet Union, Nikita Khrushchev. And from Moscow, she gave us her take on the possibility of these two leaders meeting soon.
Well, there is a possibility that it's been discussed, and it was mentioned that Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu went to Pyongyang in July. In fact, I think it's important to remember that Russian actions in many ways are reciprocal. So when the president of South Korea went to Kiev also in July, then Shoigu immediately went to North Korea. And I think the South Koreans were quite taken by that because they thought that they have reasonably good relationship with the Russians. But the Russians like, well, you went to Kiev, so we're going to go to Pyongyang. I think from the United States perspective, it sounds a little bit hysterical, the way they frame it. I don't believe that, the Putin turns to North Korea because he's in dire straits of ammunition. I don't think it's a very accurate portrayal, but the meeting is important. And also to say that, Russia is fully isolated and then suddenly it turns to North Korea and it's a chink, I would disagree with that because, there's a lot of other states. I mean, we just witnessed a meeting with Putin President of Turkey, Erdogan. So that isolation, that full isolation that the United States was aiming at, certainly didn't happen. It is an isolation, but it's not a full one. But the North Korea visit, if it does happen, is important also to show that the Russians and the North Koreans are standing against those sanctions. And in many ways, I think for Putin, it's more of an image that he is kind of catering, or he's putting under his wing all this wronged by the West. But it's certainly, in terms of technology and food and other ways, I think it's more important to North Korea. And for Russia, it's more of an image that really, I mean, how much ammunition North Korea can supply, it's an open question.
Also, as well, it's a leader, it's an international leader that raises a lot of fear in the West that many don't know a lot about. And this is President Putin, as you say, having meetings with Kim Jong Un if they do go ahead. And where that relationship could lead to is bound to raise ring a lot of alarm bells in the West, in particular in the US.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's a very important question. But the reason I mentioned it's slightly kind of American attitude, it's slightly hysterical, because before Putin became the full enfant terrible of the Western world, it was Kim Jong Un. And so now the two bad boys of international politics is meeting. And of course, we're going to talk about it in slightly higher tones. But yes, I think if the relationship does happen, and I'm actually not quite sure that we're there yet to discuss it, because Kim Jong Un is very careful, and Putin, from my point of view, it's more of an imagery than much else. But if push comes to shove, I'm sure that Putin will have no qualms to help. And I think that's one of the reasons the meeting is kind of public. And I mean, the preparation may be so public is that it's a spook factor, is that what Russians can do to aid Kim Jong Un's nuclear program. And so in this sense, it was on the Russian side, for sure, is to say, well, we're treated this way, but we can really be kind of a splinter in global, an even greater splinter in global affairs. And I think that's the fear that we should really pursue.
Nina Khrushcheva there, Professor of International Affairs at the New School in New York City.